Today I want to talk about a topic that is of very much interest to a lot of college students, nutrition. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get going. Let's start with some definitions. First of all, there are some terms that we need to know about. They're called dietary reference intakes, or DRIs, and these are words to describe some of the important terms in nutrition. I'll talk about those in just a second. We also need to understand that dietitian is a term that describes a person who's an expert in nutrition, typically a registered dietitian, and that's different from the term nutritionist, because in most states, almost anyone can say, I'm a nutritionist, and not have any credentials and still seem to be an expert when they're really not. So the term dietitian is typically the term that is used for the expert that has extensive training in nutrition. Dietary reference intakes, or DRIs, is a term that describes a wide class of words or terms in the area of nutrition, and they describe the amount of a nutrient that you have to have that's above insufficient intake and below excessive nutrient intake. You all know about RDA, or recommended dietary allowances. That's the minimum amount of nutrient that you would need for good health. And when there's not enough information available to establish an RDA, there's another term called adequate intake. There's another term called UL, or tolerable upper limit, which is the amount which is too much. And that's something we all worry about not getting enough, but there's a possibility that you might take too much of a specific nutrient. So the range between the RDA and AI at the bottom and the UL at the top, we could call the target zone for healthy eating as we see it here. Let's hear more from an expert.
There really are three terms that are being used. One of the components is the RDA. They've retained that term, and it basically means the same thing that it used to. The RDAs are defined as the nutrient intake that meets the needs of 98% of a healthy population of a given gender and age group. So we've kept that. We've also added what's called the AI, or adequate intake. And those are for nutrients where we don't have quite enough research to be secure in our information. And so if we don't know enough about a nutrient to set an RDA, we'll go ahead and set an AI, adequate intake. And then the third type of recommendation that's included in the DRI is the upper limit, or UL. A lot of people don't realize that it actually is very harmful for you to overdo certain nutrients. And so there are upper limits for nutrients such as vitamin C, for calcium, magnesium, and the more the American public can come to recognize that term, the better off they'll be